Rishi Sunak has warned of a rise in extremism as Muslims elect George Galloway in Rochdale. To be fair, it's not the worst thing that Muslims have done in Rochdale. Rishi has pledged to stop extremism, but if he's using the same tools he used to stop the boats, extremism is going to get 20 times worse, and extremists will be given free hotels and spending money. But we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Accusations of Islamophobia are stopping any scrutiny or criticism of Islam and allowing extremism to go unchecked. Following Islamist threats to politicians, Conservative MPs Lee Anderson and Suella Braverman have been accused of Islamophobia for drawing attention to this. And Lee is even being investigated for hate crime by London's Mayor Sadiq Khan's police force for suggesting that Sadiq is under the thumb of Islamists. Although I've never understood the revulsion at Islamophobia. Nobody gives people with arachnophobia a hard time for their fear, and all spiders do is sometimes pop out around the house. If Osama bin Laden came scuttling out from under your couch, it's much more understandable if you don't like it. I think it's the legs. They're so hairy. And the fact that he's been dead for 13 years, of course. But people are going to want to swipe him away with a rolled-up newspaper. And if you turned on the bathroom light and found Abu Hamza in your bath, unable to get out because his hooks don't give him any purchase on the shiny sides, you'd probably soil your underpants yourself. How are you going to get a bit of card under him, jiggle him up into a pint glass and put him in the garden? He's 21 stone. I can understand people being apprehensive. And spiders just want to make a little web and catch some flies. They haven't been mobbing the streets of our cities, calling for jihad and the destruction of Israel. They haven't desecrated war memorials or sent teachers into hiding for displaying cartoons. Spiders haven't attacked authors for blasphemy or flown planes into skyscrapers or tried to establish a global caliphate or detonated bombs at pop concerts. Islamists are definitely a bit scarier than spiders. So what is Islamophobia? Since the Hamas attacks of October the 7th, large increases in Islamophobia have been recorded. Muslims have reported being afraid to leave the house, which raises the concern. If Muslims feel afraid to leave the house, who's going to make Jews feel afraid to leave the house? I'm joking. I'm not suggesting all Muslims are anti-Semitic. According to a survey by the Anti-Defamation League, only 54% of British Muslims have anti-Semitic values. A mere 54%. Hardly any. The Guardian has the apparently shocking revelation that more than half of Tories think that Islam is a threat to the British way of life, while only 18% believe the two are compatible. But is this hatred? Or aren't these just valid concerns? You wouldn't chastise an Aztec for being concerned about the impact of Spanish immigration on the Tenochtitlan way of life. And it's not as if these views are based on prejudice. They're based on an observable fact of what's happened in countries such as Lebanon when Islamists became predominant, and of what's happened in this country already. Terror attacks, hate preachers, huge marches calling for jihad, grooming gangs that target children seen as fair game because they're infidels, blasphemous authors assaulted, teachers sent into hiding, and films cancelled. I can't help but feel that if Islamists were dealt with and the threats, violence, anti-Semitism, censorship and bigotry ended, Islamophobia would evaporate too. There's been a very visible rise of Islamism in the UK, thrown into stark relief by the anti-Israel marches. Suddenly, the mainstream palliatives for mass immigration, multiculturalism is great, we'll all get along somehow, nummy food, went out the window as we saw huge mobs running rampant, desecrating war memorials and generally behaving in a manner that's not very British. Well, unless we've gone to watch a football game in a French town. But in our defence, at least we're drunk when we're chucking those white plastic chairs into the town fountain. But the numbers have always been there in the data. The UK's intelligence agency, MI5, have 43,000 extremists on their watch list and 90,000 are Islamist terror suspects. And as this graph shows, there are far more Islamist prisoners than right-wing prisoners. Instead of tackling it at its roots, authorities turn a blind eye to Islamism and even fund it, as they did when the government funded the notorious Green Lane Mosque in Birmingham that hosted hate preachers. And any organisation set up to tackle terrorism inevitably gets dragged to the left by the progressive cabal that runs the public services in the UK. Prevent have been criticised for being too focused on right-wing extremists, who mainly seem to be autistic teenagers who've downloaded some banned document from the dark web, or a guy putting up stickers instead of being a credible threat to British society. I believe we should protect people, protect Muslims from hatred, but allow ideas to be criticised. Islamophobia is a word invented to stop scrutiny or criticism of Islam by making it akin to racism or xenophobia, which is an easy link as Islam didn't originate in Britain. But Islam isn't a race, it's a religion. And Islamism is a political ideology that wants to reorder society and government according to religious laws. It's been tried in places like Iran and Afghanistan, and I strongly recommend that progressives visit those countries in a gay pride bikini before pointing the finger and shrieking, Islamophobia! The great Christopher Hitchens warned us that the term Islamophobia would be used to stop scrutiny or criticism and hold open the gates of Western civilization. And now we're watching it happen in real time. Here he is.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic.